This is the 19th season of Bass Talk Live. BTL is presented by Bass Cat Boats, Strike King Lures, Aftco, Pro Guide Batteries, X-Zone Lures, Shoreline Boat and RV Repair, Spro, Gamakatsu, Big Bite Baits, The Bass Tank, Denali Rods, Beatdown Outdoors, and Sunline.
BTL coming at you.
Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of BTL Bass Talk Live, where we are going to talk about bass fishing. Two major events going on this week. And I will venture to say, I will say it personally, in my opinion, they are the two most underrated tournaments in bass fishing. Now out west, the one that we're going to talk about mainly today, not underrated. Everyone knows what it is. It's the Bassmaster Classic of the West. It stands on its own. It's the 41st year. It's the One Bass U.S. Open in its second year at Mojave. And we are going to have advanced anglers Dan O'Sullivan and also the head media guy for One Bass this week, sending out all the press release, taking care of all the behind the scenes things on to talk about day one of the 3-day U.S. Open. And we'll kind of break down about how it works. I've talked about it before, but it's a really cool format. And then also kicking off tomorrow is the Bass Nation National Championship. The Bass Nation Championship, this is where you've seen guys like Caleb Summerall come out of, Paul Mueller, Brandon Polinick, just to name a few. Onum. There's a bunch of guys that came out from the Bass Nation Championship. And that takes place at Lake Hartwell. And this is also the last year that the Bass Nation Championship will be one angler from every state, plus a couple international. There's going to be some major format changes for next year. So you will have 3 Bassmaster Classic berths. Let's try to say that without a lisp. 3 Bassmaster Classic berths from that tournament and an Elite Series spot. So there's some interesting anglers that are in that. You can go over to Bassmaster and see the field. But like I said, today I wanted to talk specifically about the U.S. Open. We talked about it was going on. Josh Bertrand, the day before he left, the defending champion at Mojave, and the 40th One Bass U.S. Open jumped on to talk about that. But today from the, what are you calling it? A rig, a bus, a compound, the advanced angler.
Christine and I differ on what we should call it. I call it the work live loft. It's a camper travel trailer. We cover the country with this thing. I think we figured out we've probably done a little over 60,000 miles the last 2 years towing this thing to all the different tournaments. So
for the BTL listeners who have been around a long time, you've been on BTL before, you've been on BTL a lot. You've done a lot with Bass Zone in the past, but the last 2 years, you and the wife made quite the commitment. Explain like what the heck you do.
Well, I'm still the media, Christine and I do media tracking for a lot of the pros. I still have advanced angler that I still got to figure out. I'm still figuring out how to blend everything, but, what we're doing on the road is we wanted to, when the kids got old enough, we figured out, when they got a point where they could take care of themselves or had moved out or whatever, that we eventually thought we would end up going out on the road and being around the tours and stuff, just because it's what we do. As media people, you did it for many, many, many years with, Bass Zone, BTL, all that stuff. And kids got old enough and we looked at Airbnbs, and it's so expensive now to do Airbnbs. Mm-hmm. Some of them are $1,000 a week. And so Christina's family's long time RV camper type. So we just did a bunch of research and we bought a 32-foot travel trailer and we go in the campgrounds. And what we do while we're there is we do content with anglers for their sponsors. So we work with a company and we do daily wrap-up videos with the company's top 2. finishers. We work with Seagar, we work with Impulse Lithium. I actually, the kind of the funny one this year was every fishing day that he was in the field, I shot with Kyoya Fujita
Oh, wow.
in Japanese for Daiwa Japan.
Oh, wow. How did that go? Did you have an interpreter? Did you have Sego there?
No, well, if we had to ask a few, if we had to get serious about communicating, yeah, it was Sego would help. Jackie from Texas Boat World, he would help. And then when Masa from Japan, who came out and filmed the first 2 tournaments in Florida and the last 2 tournaments in New York, he helped when he was there, but he was filming for Daiwa's Japan show. But the joke was, for all I know, I have no idea what Kyoya is saying on camera. He might be going, I don't know why this fat round guy white guy is filming me. I have no idea why fat guy Gene is, we joked about it all year long with everybody because I have no idea what he said. But I think the first tournament he was a little unsure
Well,
of
heck
what
yeah. He's
it was.
a young guy in a country that doesn't know any English. Around the guys that he's grown up, he pretty much knew Brandon Polinick, and that was it, right?
Yeah, and so here's a funny thing about Kyoya. As I got to know him, Satoshi Ito is kind of his main point of contact at Japan or at Daiwa. Satoshi actually used to be Gary Yamamoto's personal assistant after Ben Matsubu, and before Ben went on to his own things. But Satoshi worked for him, or maybe it was reversed. I don't remember. But so getting to know Satoshi told me that the funny thing about Kyoya is that it's either a cousin and a sister or a cousin and a brother. I don't remember which order it is, but I think it's his sister works for a company that requires their employees to speak English. And the cousin is an English teacher that teaches kids to speak English. And Satoshi asked him, "Why don't you speak English?" And he said, if I would have known it would have helped me in bass fishing, I would have done it. Huh. So, but that was an interesting thing throughout the year. But I did some stuff. We worked with American Bait Works and their brands this year, or the last 2 years.
With the bait
fishing.
fuel, that's the bait fuel stuff, right?
It is, yeah. And
that's exploded over the last couple of years.
And it's kind of like hydrowave. You can't explain it, but you just see weird stuff. You know what I'm saying? And you got people that say, "Nah, that stuff's junk. That doesn't work. It doesn't. That stuff has no scent. How could it work?" Same with hydrowave. You can't hear it under the water, but if you used this thing or you used this stuff, you just saw weird things that make you go, "I guarantee you this stuff works." But yeah, that it's Mary at Bucks Island, who I do the marketing for in the fishing community in the state of Alabama. She asked me end of last year, "What's it like being on the road?" And I said, "We really enjoy it. I'm with my wife, and that makes it, we've got the system going in here, and it's not always peaches and cream. We're married, we fight, but overall, you just love doing what you're doing. You love seeing stuff." But the the thing I told Mary is I've always respected what these guys do. 20 plus years. Grateful to Mark Jeffries, our co-mentor. The guy taught you everything and to get you started and help me a bunch. And so all the way back to even before I was able to work with Bass Zone, I respected what these guys do, but living in it and seeing the camaraderie, seeing how they jump in to help each other, seeing how each individual family or couple or however it works operates. I didn't think I could ever respect it more, but I do. And the way Christine and I look at it, we're here to serve. So we're here to do the media tracking. If they need some photos, we help them. But we try to have people over for dinner once a week, just thanks for being friends, thanks for being clients, take a night off, we got dinner kind of stuff. And so we kind of try to just be a part of it and be here to help. So
And the media tracking is important because that's so right now I think there's a big I don't want to say it's not a controversy, but there's a discussion. That's the word about the value of tournament angling versus social media versus YouTube versus how it all fits together to drive sales. Basically, your job and one of the main things that you do is you show the value of professional anglers to the companies that pay the professional anglers money. That's one big
yeah,
aspect of your job.
it
You
is.
say, here's, this company A says, hey, whether it's quarterly reports, year-end reports, or whatever, they say we are investing in Angler X. And then Angler X says, okay, I need to make sure I'm showing a return on that investment to that company. And that's where you, in some instances, you're working with the companies too, but that's where you, as a third party, comes in and works with Angler X to gather BTL interviews, magazine articles, FS1, Bassmaster, all of the things that they do that show how many impressions, how much product they're moving, what they're doing name recognition wise, and then you put that together into a concise package, give it back to Angler X, who then shares it with his sponsor, which then that sponsor says, okay, we're seeing a return on our investment, and then that continues, and that allows them to stay out. So it's an integral part of the industry that is often behind the scenes that no one ever really gets to see, just when you turn TV on or when you turn the live on.
Right. And so you're right. You have to look at everything as a whole package. Um, it's easy to look at a social media campaign
Mm-hmm.
and see this many views. That's what and that's a very important aspect in our promotions world these days, in any industry. But in the fishing industry, so much of what we do is still legacy type media. It's the print is still extremely valuable. I mean, is it taking some knocks? Yes. Does the web take away from it? Yes. But you still have publications that have six-figure subscriptions
Mm-hmm.
of people that have, they've got a subscriber base that's 600 plus thousand. Television is still extremely important in our game. Um, to ultimately have something on uh, Fox Sports, in the Major League Fishing side, Discovery Channel, all those things add impact and they add visibility to what an angler's doing. And to focus solely on social media is a very partial view of that angler's reach. And so what we do is we pull all of that stuff together. We track over 30,000 publications a day is what we do.
Wow.
Um, I mean, for example, you guys have probably heard the story about Gerald last year getting into Women's World magazine with some chance thing that happened at
No, I did not hear that story.
Women's World magazine. Gerald was in that publication because of something that happened at a Dollar General.
Wait. What? Do you know this story?
Um, not in complete detail, but there was something that happened where he ended up helping somebody in a Woman's World magazine at a check stand, and somehow the Dollar General people made notice of it to the Woman's World, and it became a thing. And I know that several times that we've camped around Gerald and Leanne, Gerald's been on Gerald's been
That's it?
on
That magazine right there?
that magazine, yeah. And and if we're not tracking all these publications for Gerald's name, it doesn't get captured. So take a publication that has, however many millions of subscription base, and circulation is the better word for it, because you got subscribers, but it's also got newsstands. So it's got circulation on it. And Gerald and Leanne knew and had notified us of it, but it got picked up automatically by our services that we use. So if you're not tracking that kind of stuff, okay, here's one thing. I was in Women's World magazine. But how many people get that publication? And not only that, but what is the actual ad value equivalent? It's
Yeah.
called AVE of that spread. And what AVE is say a page in a magazine, whatever it is, say it's $6,000 to buy a full page ad. If that angler is in an article talking about, let's say Matt Pangrat goes in Bassmaster magazine, let's just say, and Bassmaster's subscription rate for a full page ad, let's say it's $10,000. I know it's more, but let's just say it's $10,000. And you have a 3-page spread in that publication talking about Denali rods, talking about your Bass Cat boat, talking about Sunline Gamakatsu and the BFE. You just bought $30,000 of advertising for your companies. And that's the way to look at the return on investment for your sponsors when you're doing that. But without having a third party
like you
tracking service, it's really you can guess at and just say, hey, I was in this magazine, great. But our service provides you the bullets that go in your promotions gun to say, I reached 500,000 people and it would have cost $30,000 to buy that advertising. Does it mean that your sponsorship deal should now become $30,000? No, not necessarily. But it just means that you bought at whatever your sponsorship partnership deal was, you bought your sponsor at a value.
Yep, you're showing value.
Yeah. And
I like
we do it on the quarterlies with a spreadsheet. We will make annual kit reports for the guys that are color booklets designed to work in corporate America, because I did before I went full-time in fishing. And then we help make proposals for sales pitches as well.
You're not a agent or
no.
That's a totally different. We had I guess the only one who's still kind of working in that would be like JD. And there's a couple guys that I guess you would call for lack of a better term, a agent.
Yeah, and my experience in our industry is not ready for agents unless you're dealing with big non-endemic type agency type things. But we're such a relationship business, Matt, that I think a lot of times if somebody is open to conversation with somebody, say at ICAST, and all of a sudden they start getting contacted by my agent, it's a turnoff to a lot of people in our business.
Yeah, I mean, it works well, and like you said, in some in that third party where you have to deal. Like I've gotten into BTL with some that have like multiple levels of marketing agencies, so you're not even dealing with that company, you're dealing with a marketing agency that then represents that company. So then in that case, it's better to have someone who understands how that whole system works. So that's where I see it being advantageous.
Absolutely.
Because I don't know, like I've struggled like working with the big marketing because they don't care. They're all about ROIs, return on investment. They're all about numbers. They could care less about they just have a budget where a company goes, hey, we have $100,000 earmarked to this. Figure out where you want to distribute, whether it's podcast sponsorship, anglers, magazines, TV, billboard, whatever. It's just going here. And that's where I could see it be advantageous to have an agent type.
Absolutely. And the appropriate term for purchasing that kind of advertising is CPM. It's cost per thousand. It means Mille, MILLE. And what it does is it's how they price Super Bowl commercials. They know how many millions of people are going to be watching it. So that 30-second spot is worth $3.2 million. And that's all cost per thousand. They break it down by what the cost per thousand viewers is going to be. And the same thing for impressions in our game. So
I could you see Paul Heyman coming over to the bass fishing world and showing up to a meeting as an advocate and an advocate for Brandon Polinick.
Yeah, but there are guys, I think, with opportunities that would be presented that having somebody in that world, having Scott Boros or somebody on the side going to Pepsi or going to, which Gatorade's a Pepsi brand, but you know what I mean? Some of these larger non-endemic
But there's
brands.
also very few guys that are pulling those, like a Scott Martin type. You see a lot of non-endemic big box stuff with Scott, but I mean, isn't that a smaller number of guys who actually would pique the interest of a massive non-endemic like that to be able to have enough eyeballs on them to make that a interesting sponsor pull?
Yeah, well, I got a story for you on that kind of thing. There was a woman out here in the late '90s. I'm pretty sure it was the late '90s. I don't think it was the early 2000s. But her name was Donna Casase, and she was out of Vegas, and she started an agency called Creative Angles, and her clients were John Murray, Byron Velvick, Skeet Reese, Aaron Martins, and Robert Lee.
Wow.
And she had Pepsi's ear for a while. And I was doing a story with her about the agency and the team. And her philosophy was, I've got these good-looking young professional anglers that are going somewhere. This is actually before you had the Crown Royal team with John David Curry, JDC Marketing. It was before that, not much before, but it was there. And she had Pepsi's ear, and she told me that she sat in it was the third or fourth meeting with them, and they had 4 or 5 people in this meeting at the time. And she finally was getting to the point where she wanted to start talking money. And she goes, it's going to be quite expensive for these guys. And, it's for the team, it's going to be about $250,000 a year. And everybody paused, and she thought, oh man, I went too high. And the guy said, if that's what you think the value is, it had cost us too much to keep track of that kind of investment. We were thinking more along the lines of $1.2, $1.3 million a year. And it was, they went, okay, that they didn't value themselves high enough. And it's a fine line. You got to understand your company. You got that you're talking to, you got to understand the industry. Our industry is, and I bring up Gerald again. What does he always say? We're all they're all puppies eating at the same dish in the fishing industry.
Yeah. You can't go to Jim's hand poured plastics and request that kind of money.
No, and you can't. You got 125 guys that are all wearing a Zoom logo. They're not all going to make that much money, or
wow, that's a hell of a story, Dana.
Yeah, it was a story I did in West Coast Bass News in probably '98.
Is Donna still around?
No, I don't believe so. I think she ended up getting married and having a kid,
is she still alive?
Oh, I believe so. Yeah, she was young too. I
would love to do that. That would be a hell of a story, a hell of an interview on BTL, would it not?
Oh, I think it would be. Obviously, the marketplace has changed some. I mean, dude, you think about it. That's before bass fishing that's before Bassmaster on ESPN.
Mm-hmm.
And these guys were fishing the opens at this time. They were fishing what were they called back then? The invitationals in the West Coast.
The top,
Murray was already
in bunch of like top 150, the West Coast invitationals. They had a bunch of different stuff.
Yeah, and I think Murray and Velvick were already kind of venturing out east at that point, but it's been a long time. Murray probably would know how to reach her, or know where she ended up. John's a kind of like sitting and talking to John just about past stuff was kind of like sitting in D. Thomas's garage talking to him. Just the history of stuff that you could get from those guys.
And I mean, without giving anything away, I mean, wasn't that like a wild time in professional bass fishing when you had Velvick and Murray and Skeet? Like, wasn't that? I mean, I've just heard stories of like the PG version of the stories where like they would all be in the top 10, and all of a sudden one of them would look at the clock and be like, "Dang, day 2 starts in like an hour and a half. We better get to the ramp, and then they would show up and they'd all freaking smash him again. Like they were like living in Vegas and out there. Like it was like really cool, some really cool, if you want to call that cool, but there's some intriguing stories from that time period of all of those anglers' lives out there.
Yeah, well, Byron, and I never saw the house, so I can't say first experience, but I've had so many descriptions and stuff told. The house that Byron had on The Bachelor, that was the house. That was the fish
really?
house. Yeah, and it was John and Byron lived in that together. It was a 4-bedroom home that each had its own entrance with a center great room. And the way they described it to me was that the center room was where they all worked on tackle and where they worked on their gear. So there were oil stains on tables and floors and furniture from fixing trolling motors and grease and reels and stuff like that. And it was just, I mean, the guys that have come through that house, Skeet, obviously, Aaron, Ish, Rambanis at some point, I believe, had come through there. Some Brett Hite, Timmy Klinger. As far as wild, getting to the U.S. Open, they had the One Bass Hall of Fame inductions the other night.
Mm-hmm.
Fred Ward and Pat Donahoe were inducted, but and this was John Murray and Byron Velvick were key to me getting access to East Coast professional guys. Skeet, obviously, very instrumental in my career, and Aaron, a longtime friend, but John and Aaron and Byron were all inducted into the One Bass Hall of Fame, and Carol Martins and Leslie Martins were there for the Aaron induction, and Carol went last, and she looked at Byron and said, and you corrupted my little boy. And at one point I was fumbling around with my camera settings, getting ready to take pictures. So I wasn't really paying attention, but I thought I heard something, and I looked at Egan and I said, "What did she just say?" And he goes, "Yep." And I said, "Wait, no, what did she just say?" And he said, "Hooker."
Oh, great. Yeah, Carol Martins is a piece of work. Legend.
She's
an absolute legend.
She's amazing. Carol is amazing.
Byron Velvick fishing the One Bass US Open this week. Was it Velvick and Murray that got inducted into the One Bass Hall of Fame this week? I saw both of them. Was there anyone else? I saw a picture with like Skeet. I think he came just for the ceremony, and then Rick is there too.
Yeah. Who?
Rick. I saw a picture of them like with Rick and
Rick
Skeet
is fishing too.
Yeah, Rick's fishing. I saw that. Yeah, which is freaking crazy. The dude fishes the U.S. Open. He fishes a division of the Opens. He fishes all of the elite series events, and he doesn't act like he's a day over 50. It's freaking unbelievable. I mean, I've waited next to him in the Opens and stuff, and it blows my mind that at mid 70s, the guy is as agile, nimble, and sharp as he is.
Yeah, he's
to be able to travel. I mean, I know there's a ton of guys into their 90s and 100s that are agile, nimble, and sharp, but to do it, like, I know it drains me at 39 doing it. I couldn't imagine what he's doing. He doesn't have to do it.
No, I know. It's Rick is I mean, he's a force of nature. But no, Fred Ward, Pat Donahoe, Byron Velvick, Aaron Martins, and John Murray were inducted into the One Bass Hall of Fame.
WON, Western Outdoor News.
Yes, Western Outdoor News. And this is the second class. Last year it was Bill Rice, a longtime editor, Mike Folkstad, Rick Klun. I was there. I'd have to remember everybody, but yeah, there was a class put together last year, and obviously some of them are posthumous inductions. So there's people there on the Pat Donahoe has passed away. Fred Ward is super foundationally responsible for the careers of guys like Murray, and he was a Ranger dealer and a tackle dealer, and John John's dad bought John's first Ranger boat from Fred Ward. Velvic, all of those guys.
26 of them.
31.
That's what John
31.
Murray won. 31 boats
In the West on every major tournament body of water in the West Coast. John Murray won a boat in competition. And when John went national, he and Gary Dobbins were tied with 31 boats won in competition out here.
Wow.
Gary went on to win more after John went national. Yeah.
That's got to be a national record. I can't see any. I don't think there's an opportunity.
I think Dave Gleeby's the national record. I think he's at 45 or 44 or 45 or something like that. And a Cadillac.
But that's West. Is that West too?
Yeah, David was West Coast.
Yeah.
And ended up fishing the Bassmaster Tour for a lot of years. He won Bassmaster events. Folkstad won Bassmaster events. Obviously Klein won.
He's fishing this week.
Events. He's here this week too. Klein spent 7 days practicing.
I saw that every time I logged on to Instagram, he was doing like another practice day update. And I was like, holy cow, guys living in the desert.
Dude, this event is addictive, Matt.
I know.
It is. And you won the thing as a AAA. What year was that again?
18.
Yeah. You won that. You won this thing. I mean, that's the year that Hallman came out and fished it.
Yeah, that's that picture. That picture right behind me. I don't know if here. Let me see if I can blow it up. This is the greatest picture I've ever had. So see that picture with the red right there? So that's Hallman, who's had a few cold pops. And then that's me at the AAA, and that was Bub Tosh's year. And so that's me and Bub Tosh with Hallman in the middle at the U.S. Open. He's wearing his OU. Yep. Throwing up the deuces, and me and Bub. That's the greatest picture I've ever had.
Yeah, that was. I think I took that picture on a phone.
Oh yeah, I think you did.
Because by the time you got to the railhead room there at the station, everybody's got a pop or two in them, and
it took me like an hour to get there just because you walk past and everyone's like, oh yeah, it's a trick, blah blah blah. You get in there and I was like, man, I'm gonna have to say something. You got like Rick Pierce there and everybody and all the guys, and I just think it's like I gotta keep it short and sweet, get 2 good sentences out.
And Hallman goes up there and I start yelling Boomer, and he starts... Oh yeah, it was fun.
Yeah,
that was fun. That was cool.
I really want to get into the turn before I got a couple. Had you finished your thought on that? I know we were kind of all over the map.
Yeah, it's fine. We're good.
I did have 2 more questions before we're going to take our first break of the show, and then we got to come back and talk about what's actually going on at the U.S. Open. We have a Kyle Grover in the lead with 20.70.
Yep.
It's a 3-day tournament. Full field fishes 3 days. Your AAA weight counts towards your weight, and vice versa. But I did have a question about Kyoya. That's how you say it?
Yeah.
Kyoya. Okay. Does he let you like rummage around his stuff? Like, have you seen this stuff?
So I'll have to tell you a little bit after the break. I have, but we actually ended up having to rig a boat for him at Bucks Island. So why don't you take the break? I'll tell you that quick story, and then we can get into it could be quick. We'll get into the U.S. Open after that.
It's good. It's a podcast. Like I said, it's all dependent on what you have to do, because I know you got work with one bass. But
so I'm here, man. You got me.
All right. BTL. What is the day of the week today? Is it Tuesday? Tuesday the 17th. Dan O'Sullivan, advanced angler, covering the One Bass 41st annual One Bass U.S. Open. Second year it's been on my hobby. We'll be back right after this.
The new Puma STS has been redesigned from the ground up. With the angler, design, function, and performance in mind, nothing on this new offering was compromised, and the only thing carried over from the previous version is the name. Based on the Soft Touch series hull that started with the flagship Jaguar, this new model is nimble and performs incredibly well at all speeds with either a 250 or 300 horsepower engine. Featuring a new 96-inch wide-body footprint, this hull measures out at 20 foot 7 inches in length. Industry-leading design coupled with tournament-winning performance. The Puma STS from Basscat. Feel the rush.
Series Pro Daryl Gleason here. My Pro Guide batteries keep me going on those long tournament days and long practice days. Always plenty of juice, never fail. The best part about Pro Guide batteries, it's the people behind the company. They have over 40 years experience in the battery business, keeping all of us fishermen out on the water longer, catching more fish. Check them out at ProGuideBatteries.com.
What's up, Bass Talk Live fans? Brandon Polnick here. And ever since I won a couple Bassmaster Elite Series events on X-Zone Lures, I've been getting a bunch of questions of what makes them so special and different. And really, the truth is, it's in the details. The little details, things like no cheap fillers in their plastic. That gives you more lifelike action, more realistic and vibrant colors. But don't just take my word for it. Go to www.xzonelures.com and check them out for yourself.
Shoreline Boat and RV, dock rash, storm damage, collision repair, that deep scratch or gouge from trying to access that secret creek. Shoreline Boat and RV can get your prized possession back in mint condition and looking good on the water, fast. All repairs are done in-house, so they're able to get your boat or RV back to brand new, quickly. All Shoreline's work comes with a rock-solid warranty. Find out more at ShorelineBoatandRV.com, Kansas City, Austin, and Tulsa. Welcome back, VTL on Tuesday, talking with Dan O'Sullivan. As we're a third of the way through the 41st edition of the One Bass U.S. Open, you can keep up to all the things going on at the U.S. Open on One Bass, WONBASS.com. One Bass.
It's actually onebassevents.com.
Oh, okay. OneBassEvents.com.
Yep.
At the U.S. Open. Before the break, we kind of teased it a little bit. You were talking about he was the rookie of the year, wasn't he?
No.
No, he wasn't. He was second.
Cifuentes
But he had
was.
4 top 10s. That's right. But he had 4 top 10s, I think. Kyoya. I've never gotten it right. I never will get it right.
Say it like a
Kyoya.
Kyoya
Fujita.
Yes. Yep.
But he's just a little background before you get into this. He is the side hooked crabbed guy. He is the fuzzy dice guy. He is the 3-pound test guy and the 5 transducers, live scope transducers on the boat guy who was everything all world in Japan, won everything, came over before he was a pro. And Brandon Polnick and him did like a deal where Polnick went there and then he came here. Yep. And then he made it in one season. I ate a hot dog with him before one of the opens. That's my extent. I said, congratulations, you're going to revolutionize fishing. I've been saying it before. Then he went out and he did what he did. So that kind of sets the stage. So when I said, if you rummaged around his boat, I would just imagine that he has a lot of crazy stuff in there, Dano.
He does. And how I got to rummage in his boat a little bit was Satoshi Ito, who I spoke of earlier, called me. Yep. And said, because Daiwa has come to Daiwa, Japan, Trevor and several of the guys, including Satoshi, have come to Bucks Island to see how we do things being a marine dealership and having a tackle store. So we've had their visits 3 or 4 times. So Kyoya was practicing at Seminole, and Satoshi said bumped a log, and he did some damage to the back of his boat. And we got a really good glass guy at Bucks Island, but he had too much going on, so we took the thing over to Falcon Boats, the Marine Pro Service over in Newberry, South Carolina. They do amazing work, and they lifted the boat up and said, "This is not a week's worth of work. We're going to have to flip this thing over," and sent me pictures of logs stuck in.
Oh, so it was more than bumping. It was.
Yes. So they said, Daiwa said, "What do we do?" And I said, "You have to buy him a boat." They said, "What?" I said, "He's going to have to buy a boat if he wants to fish the Elite Series, because there's not enough time to get this fixed." So with him and Daiwa, they ended up buying him a new Skeeter from Bucks Island. We rigged it over and got it ready for him to be able to arrive, get all his graphs set up, and he is meticulous. Like his mounts, if there's 1/16 of an inch over here and an 1/8 of an inch on his graphs over here. He's going to get them adjusted. I mean, meticulous. And that's the way a guy has to have it. I mean, it is what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
But yes, while he was moving his tackle, I went through a lot of stuff. And there is stuff. I mean, I saw those fuzzy dice before he fished them. The drift fry minnows that he uses when he's scoping. Japanese spinner baits, Japanese bladed jigs. There's all Japan. The rods are all Daiwa Japan, and his deal is with Daiwa Japan and then Jackal, and they think he's the next Kevin Van Dam. That's what they think.
I mean, he's not leading me to believe otherwise after 1 year.
No, and here's the thing. So through one of the interpreters, had he known, had he thought about titles, he would have fished differently in 2 or 3 events and probably would have had 6 or 7 top 10 finishes.
Oh, but he didn't understand how the dang thing worked.
No. And Okeechobee, he admitted to Masa and Sego that he was a little overwhelmed because his experience was the Opens and the Elite Series was much bigger in scope, and the staging was different and the amount of people around were different. So he was a little out of his element and was a little nervous.
I mean, he doesn't speak well English and he's maybe 80 pounds soaking wet.
Yeah. But he fished 2 or 3 of those early events only thinking about the win, and made decisions that cost him 30, 40 places in the standings. And had he thought about the Rookie of the Year title and even Angler of the Year, would have fished differently.
Can I throw up this bait that he uses? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's not like a secret or
No.
anything. It's pretty interesting. Hold on. That's it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Look
the
at
drift,
that. It's
that's
like,
the drift fry. And
have you
and
seen
he
that
told
thing in the
me
water yet?
I own some.
Are they really?
It's a hollow. So you think how bass tricks are made?
Yeah.
With the
Dip,
blade the blade insert dipped. It's very similar to that. That is a soft plastic diving lip that acts as, a resistance when you're twitching the lure to give it not only side to side action.
Oh, so it stays up in the water column because you have the resistance, so you can pull it up and then it pulls it down so it stays totally horizontal on a ball head and you can put it in front of the fish's mouth.
100%. And he uses the Kitech ball head tungsten, either 32nd, 16th, or 8th. Yep.
Yeah, if you get nothing else out of this show, that's probably worth it.
Well, and the reason I say that's okay is because when he was doing well at Murray,
yes,
I asked him, "Are you using the crab or the drift fry?" Because Davey Hite and Mark Zona were trying to get a hold of me, and so I sent pictures to Zona of not only the transducers set up, because we rigged those transducers at Bucks Island.
There are 5.
There are 5. There's
Jeez. You don't have to go into, I don't know if it's proprietary or he does it. I don't want to get you in trouble.
No, you can see it on his boat.
Oh, I heard he was like super protective over it.
Well, you can't get his stuff, dude. It's all Japanese Garmin. I mean, it's all.
Oh, really?
Overseas. Yeah.
It's not just like a LVS 34 slapped on there with a 10-inch screen.
He has the deucers are what they are.
Yeah.
But the units, you can't get them here. I don't even know what the units are. They're all in Japanese. Yeah. And they're not the ones that we sell.
Yeah, so there's no one who could even copy his stuff.
No, they're so unique. He had a bracket that broke. And so we ordered a 15 bracket. Didn't fit. We had to customize it. We had to trim it. And then when one of the trips went back to Japan, he came back with a bracket so we could replace it. We had to make a 2-part bracket for him to fit on his mounts.
He's gonna kill everyone next year, isn't he? With that schedule?
I mean, he could. I mean, I know that's some of the discussion about, forward-facing sonar that's gone on is because here you got this kid that came in with 3 tournaments of experience in the US, and all of a sudden he's
but he was
winning one.
The GOAT over in Japan. Like, it wasn't like he just fished occasionally and came over. Like, he was dominant over there.
Well, and think about it. I mean, how big is Thunderbird? They're near
4,500 acres.
Okay. Their lakes are smaller than that
in
Japan, and they fish 500 boat fields, and he's winning those. I mean,
500 boat fields. So, like, when he's out qualifying on Shackleton Shoal on Oneida and there's 45 boats out there, he's like, oh, lots of room.
Yeah.
Vast openness.
Absolutely. I have no
so much room for activities.
No, not high pressure. Not high pressure. Yeah, so much room for activities.
Let's talk about this U.S. Open. Move to Mojave for the second year. My big thing is, I just know it out of Mead, Las Vegas, going through the Narrows.
Oh, yeah.
Is it a different feel, or did they manage to keep the U.S. Open feel, even though it's the second year, not by choice, but by water level, of moving it to Mojave? And I believe it's on Mojave next year as well, right?
The way that I understand it from Bill Egan is they're going to run the Nevada Open at Mead next year and see how it goes now with water levels and see how it turns out, is what my understanding was.
Because it has come up.
It has, yes. I mean, the bodies are covered again at Lake Mead. The barrels with the bodies in them are now back underwater. If anybody, you saw that story that came out.
Bunch of bodies.
But I mean, obviously there's a sentiment among guys that have fished, dozens of them, that they'd much rather see it on Mead. And Mead has its own unique, I will say it's extremely weird to see 20 pounds a day at a US Open, because it usually takes somewhere in the 11 to 13 pounds a day to win the US Open.
Which puts you in like 50th right now. Like Gary Klaus had 1179 and he's in 50th.
Yeah. So that is a different swing, but it's like any other promotion type deal. It's how you present it. And the venue here at Catherine Landing it's a big venue as far as the marina and the stuff that's around it. It's houseboat slips and pontoons and big parking facilities, and it feels big. So it adds to that feel of the US Open, since you can't be at its traditional home lake. And I can tell you that the anglers, it's the US Open, they want to win it. It is still the US Open. And this fishery, while the weights are bigger, it's a grind. It is a grind. Yeah, that's Catherine Landing. And you can imagine 200 boats, in the slips, all the, in that trough getting out there.
It looks like it's just as clear as Mead.
It is clearer, probably.
Clear. So you're talking 25, 30 foot visibility?
Yeah, it's pretty darn clear. Mead will get that kind of milky stain to it a little bit, that this is clear. Yeah, that's Catherine Landing right there. It's 28,000 acres. I looked it up. Christine and I looked it up the other day just to see, but it's not fishing that big. It's fishing much smaller. There's some.
What's that?
There's some traffic on all these.
Yeah. Last year, obviously, Bertrand, household name, won that event. 3 days, 5 fish each day, total weight of 3 days. Everyone fishes full field.
Yes.
And
it's
Kyle
Grover.
It's a shared weight. Okay, yeah, shared weight. So meaning if your AAA catches 20 pounds, you got 20 pounds.
Right. And for learning and for camaraderie, it's an amazing format. It's an absolutely amazing format because you get in the boat with a pro. I mean, I've heard stories of guys at tournaments nationally where Marshall gets in the boat and goes, anything I can do? Yeah, sit down and shut up and don't talk to me. I don't want to hear from you. Or, co-anglers, don't get an angle to cast at. This guy wants you to put fish in the boat, and he shares with you. He teaches you, tells you what he's doing. Amazing format. Fished them my whole life.
Kyle Grover, a household name out west?
Oh, absolutely. His dad is Rick Grover, the owner of Anglers Marine in Anaheim and Santee. One of the top Ranger dealers in the country, one of the top Mercury dealers in the country. Kyle works with him. He's a salesperson, does it all over there. And so everybody knows him, but man, he's won FLW Angler of the Year titles. He's, in the, the Western stuff. I mean, he's legitimately a good fisherman. Known Kyle
Evan,
since he was that tall.
Oh, you sent me a audio. Well, let's throw the audio in. It's a little raw. It kind of starts off, but here's, he's leading the event, 20.70 pounds. And here's his interview with you. And I think Ricky Bosford gets in there a little bit too, because he's doing some video work at the beginning, but we'll play this audio. It's about 1.5 minutes long. And then we'll come back and talk about some other quote unquote big names. Everyone's a big name in here, but names you might have heard of. And then I also want to focus specifically on Brian Smith, because ever since that dude started fishing the MPFL, he doesn't suck. Like he's always in the top 10. And you look at what he did on the Elite Series, you look at what he did on the MPFL, you look at what he did in the Opens, and now he's got a chance to win the US Open. But Kyle Grover, day one, US Open leader.
Maybe talk about it. I think you can do it again tomorrow. Yeah, so if you get near 30 seconds, I'm just going to start nodding my head. Right? 3, 2.
Yeah, had a good day out there. Caught 8 or 9 keepers, I think. Kind of started laying off of them about 11 o'clock. Caught them on the inside and the outside, both. Yeah, just fishing around bait. That was the key. There's fish. And they're swimming around all over the place. See a lot today. Hard to get on the bite, but they're there for sure in the spots I'm fishing.
Kyle, what area of the lake did you end up fishing?
Kind of mid-lake.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is there a large population that you're looking at, or
I threw at a lot more than what I caught today. They're really hard to get to bite. Every once in a while, just one's just in the mood to bite. Yeah, but they're hard to get to bite though. Yeah.
Is it a scope type deal, or is it a?
Yeah, I caught everyone looking at them on the target. Yeah.
But they're spooky.
Yeah. I think they've seen so many. They've been thrown at so many times that it seems like you got to throw at like a group of them to get one to bite. If there's a few of them there, usually you get a bite. When there's the single ones, are really hard to get to bite though.
Okay, what about the area that you're in? Are you got a lot of company around you?
Yeah, the lake's small. There's boats everywhere.
Yeah, it's not quite like Mead.
No, can't really get away. Yeah.
But good start.
Yeah.
Enough around that you feel like okay tomorrow.
I think it'd be hard to catch that weight again, but I should be able to catch 5 again. I would hope. Yeah.
Okay. Appreciate it, brother.
All right. There you go. Kyle Grover, the day one leader of the One Bass US Open.
Listen to that little thing he said in the middle. You and I are fish junkies, and we're learning junkies, where he says hard to get the individual ones to bite, so you kind of got to throw at the ones that there's multiples there.
Yeah.
To create competition in the school. Might be a school of 3 or 4 fish, but those little things get me going.
It's really interesting having fished the Opens this year where it was dominated on forward facing and then talking to different guys. There's some fisheries where it's like the individuals are the ones that bite. Like if you could see one fish, especially if it was next to a hard piece of cover, those were the ones that would bite and the groups of fish wouldn't bite. But then there's other fisheries where the groups of fish bite and the individuals don't bite. And it's definitely a spotted bass smallmouth thing, in my opinion. You're way more like it seems like the smallmouth are way more like fighting siblings than the largemouth are.
I can see that.
Like if
largemouth are loners anyway.
Yeah.
Largemouth are loner cover type fish anyway. So
a couple key guys up at the top. I think Spencer Sheffield almost won this thing last year too, didn't he?
Yeah, just over a pound behind, and he's in the top 5 again.
Yeah, he's in 4th. If I pass any like West Coast guys that it's disrespectful that I should be mentioning, let me know. But obviously, I'm going to go down to 8th. Chris Zaldain.
Oh, yeah.
This would be Chris's biggest career win, bar none.
Yeah, it would.
And coming off of a rough year on the Bassmaster Elite Series, it would be kind of like what Bertrand did last year to kind of cap it off with a 6-figure win and a boat.
Yep.
To kind of save the year. Bryant Smith in 10th.
The total prize package is going to be around 150, 160 total between the boat and the cash prizes.
That's wild. I don't know what, an $1,800 entry fee or $1,600 entry fee?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And then what do you know about Bryant Smith? I had him on BTL. I talked to him in the opens last year when he was trying to qualify. Been nothing but impressed with that guy, and he seems like a top-notch talent and a classy dude as well. He
is. It's funny, and I didn't remember this, but there's a circuit out in California called Future Pro Tour. It's $100 entry fee. You can't have one more than whatever to be in it. It's an amateur deal. And I helped my friend Vince Harris, who was the best man at Christina's in my wedding. Longtime friend. I mean, I call him my brother. He calls my dad. Been around each other. I helped him get it started by being his weighmaster and worked for him. And then when it was time for me to move on and start fishing pro-ams and stuff, and I've never been Mr. Great Joe Stud Angler. I just like to compete. But he started this thing where when they were practicing for Folsom Lake, which was my home lake, he decided to bring pros out and stake themselves out along the water, and anglers that were practicing could come up and fish. Well, I told him, dude, I don't want to do this. I just left, graduated from Future Pro 2 years ago. And he goes, it doesn't matter, Dan, you've moved on and you'd know things that some of these people would want to know. So I said, I'd do it. And I got staked out in one area of the lake. Well,
wait, they come up and ask you questions while they're out on the water if they want to?
Yeah.
No kidding. So like you'd be fishing along and there'd be Skeet and you'd be like, oh, let's go ask Skeet what he'd do over here.
Right. Yeah. It wasn't, it wasn't Skeet, but it was some of the other guys.
I know, but that's an interesting concept.
Yeah, it was fun because it was all about learning and it was an amateur deal, and that's what it was about. I mean, Mark Daniels Jr.'s dad fished that circuit with me or against me. I mean, it's that Justin Lucas got his tournament fishing start in that circuit, and that kid was always great. Well, we were at Santee Cooper in top 10. I'm standing there talking to Bryant, and we're reliving some old stuff, and he goes, "You don't remember when you met me, do you?" I said, I guess not. I mean, I figured it was at an ISE show or something. And he goes, nope. He goes, I fished Future Pro Tour with my dad. And you remember the tournament on Folsom Lake when Vince posted pros out there? He goes, me and my dad came up to you at Beals Point and you talked to us for an hour and a half. You just stood there and talked to us the whole time. And you helped us catch fish. And I said, are you kidding me? He goes, yeah, I was like 14 or 15 years old or something fishing with my dad. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Make me feel old, but I've known him that long.
Yeah.
Just a good guy. Element of faith to him. He was down in the Bay Area. Now he lives up in Roseville. Kent Brown's very instrumental in a lot of his career type stuff that he's helped him, the boat deals and the motors and stuff. So he works with Kent really closely, our mutual friend.
Mm-hmm.
Bryant's just good guy, but man, can he catch him?
Matt Becker sitting in 13th.
And you want a little piece of trivia for you? Matt came across stage with flip-flops on yesterday. And I asked him why, and he goes, they made me. They said I couldn't walk across stage barefoot.
Luke Clausen in 16th, Ty Au in 17th, Todd Klein 27th. I've become a big Todd Klein fan. That dude has a crazy life story. Kevin Short, K Pink, he always makes it out to the US Open and fishes it. He rounds out the top 30. And then you can see all the standings on One Bass.
Yeah, I'd have to pull up the rest of it. I didn't memorize it.
Yeah, it's fine. I just wanted to name a couple. So I do want to mention before we move on here, there was a freak accident on the water yesterday with Hite, Brett Hite, friend of the show, one of the best known well-liked guys out on tour. Hit a freaking bird.
Yeah, there's some birds that hover out here, terns or egrets or something in the deserts. The coots will pop up out of the water and try to fly sometimes, but I guess it came up over the bow and hit him on the right side of his face. Egan called me yesterday. I was here at the camper doing an interview, and Egan called me doing an article interview. And where are you? How fast can you get here? And it was at 1:15 or something. I said, I can't. I'm in the middle of an interview. Why? He goes, Brett Hite got hit by a bird, and he just came in here. He's injured, and the paramedics are attending to him. And I said, well, that's not something you do an interview about. I said, you can take a picture if you want to, and we can do some sort of a statement thing. And, but we didn't, we chose not to do that. But they ended up taking him to Scottsdale, 3.5, 4 hours away by ambulance. I texted with him last night about 9:30. He had just arrived in Scottsdale. When he left Catherine Landing, apparently he could not see out of his right eye. And by the time he got to Scottsdale, he could. I don't have any other updates from him since. But there may be lens damage, like from sunglass lens damage to the eye. They were talking about a puncture to his eye potentially, but that's all just stuff that was going around. Kent Brown was here yesterday, and Rusty Saluski, who fishes the Tackle Warehouse Invitationals and a longtime friend of Brett's, they got together and got his boat and stuff out of the water so that he could not have to worry about that. Steve Molinari, who's a longtime friend of Brett and John Murray, he talked to him when I was there, and Brett was like, man, can you guys get my boat out? Can you? And was starting to be able to see out of his eye at that point. And that was, halfway through weigh in. So a lot of concern for Brett, but it sounds like he's making progress. I don't have any more updates at this point. I'm
assuming he's not fishing today.
No, they took him 4 hours away by ambulance because they don't have, apparently near here, they don't have, should they have had to go into surgery, they didn't have an eye surgeon here in this area. So they took him to Scottsdale.
Yeah, thoughts and prayers with B Hite. Hopefully that'll. I always remember the photo that James Overstreet got where he got the sequence of the coot popping up out of the water and just drilling Bill Lowen dead nuts in the middle of the forehead on the Elite Series. I mean, Bill was okay. He was 100% fine. He kept going. The coot had seen better days after that. But I mean, it was one of those where the coot popped up and then jumped out of the. I mean, it wasn't like he was running through a field of coots. It was another freak accident deal like that. Do you remember that picture where it's like Lowen's face is flat and the coot's like he's wearing it like a hat?
Well, don't. Clausen yesterday. I hate to make light of stuff. It's funny, but Clausen goes, "Don't tell Block it." He'll probably want to take a hit out on Brett for running through coots.
Yeah. I was trying to find a picture of it. It was one of the greatest pictures I'd ever seen. He got the whole sequence because he just was taking off and he nailed him. But
that's funny.
All right, Dano, anything else that we need to know before I let you go here? I appreciate getting up at 6:30 a.m. and doing
Not
this
a problem,
out on the West Coast.
Anytime. That place, that show, means something to me. Anytime you need something, you know that. I mean, it's part of my legacy too. So,
Yeah.
Guys, it's tune into the Facebook page, One Bass tournaments on Facebook. You'll see some fish, but it's 183 guys. I mean, this is the cream of the crop for the Western angler. National guys have done this. It's the 41st holding of it. It's not the 41st annual because there was a break in 91 and 92 when it changed hands from Doty to the One Bass family. So it's the 41st U.S. Open. It's the first tournament in the country that paid out $100,000 cash to the winner.
Did not
and this
know
was
that.
back in the 80s. Yes.
Has anyone fished all 41?
The only one that really had a chance was Rich Tauber, but he stopped fishing 3 or 4 years ago. He had fished them all up till about 36 or 37, I believe.
Wow.
He's a U.S. Open winner. But even though this lake has got bigger fish in it than Lake Mead, it is still a grind. It is catch 5 to 8 fish a day. If you're going to be competitive, that's the way it is. It's desert fishing. It is, and you've experienced this, Matt, sitting there waiting for takeoff at Lake Mead. When you get into a desert lake like this, in the low light, it just looks like you're in a gray, featureless area, but it's almost spiritual when that sun starts to come up, the colors that pop out, and to be able to just see it's a moving experience to watch the sunrise on these lakes. And it adds a completely different element to the fishing that you do, and just the massiveness of the landscape that you're fishing around it's humbling. And Bertrand said last year that this is probably the most emotional win he's had in his career, because it's what we as West Coast anglers look to. It's what we look to, because it meant it was close enough to home that it was an impact for us our whole lives. And these guys come here with hopes and dreams, just like a guy that dreams of fishing the Classic or a Forest Wood Cup or a Red Crest or any of those. It means something. And these guys come across stage having poured thousands of dollars. It's October, Matt, and it's 100 degrees yesterday. It's going to be 100 degrees today. And it's 10 to 15 mile an hour winds. I mean, it is a physical test to compete in this, as you know. And the 3-day element makes it a little tougher to win too, because you still have to be consistent, but there's still a little bit of that factor where somebody gets couple good bites on one day that makes a change. But it's a very unique format. It's got a Western personality to it, but a national impact. And it's one of the coolest tournaments I get to work.
Well said, Dano. So you get to go from one of the coolest tournaments you get to work to the coolest college football venue in the country, the Palace on the Prairie, the house that Bud built, Gaylord Memorial Stadium, and historic Owen Field. You will actually be joining Bradley Hallman tailgating for the OU UCF game.
Yes.
This Saturday morning. Are you excited to venture to Norman, Oklahoma?
I can't wait. It's, I've been on the campus once. I played baseball against them in a scrimmage when I was traveling with the team at the Masters College. We had a spring series out there on our spring break trip where we played the NAIA schools in there. And got to scrimmage the OU team, got to scrimmage on that field. I drove by Gaylord Memorial Stadium there with Tim Cousins, who was the catcher on the national championship team. What was it, 94, 95? Drove by the stadium and and the place means something to me. I've been a Sooner fan since I was a kid.
I'm showing it. I don't care. We're 6-0.
Yeah. And what do we got to say? Love our friends from Texas, but not that week. I sent a text to James Hall and Mark Copley, who are both massive Texas fans. And I sent a text to him right after kickoff and said, remember, I hate you, ... today.
That's what I said. I mean, this is, like I said, there's a lot of, this is a international show and podcast. Got a lot of people in Australia that listen to BTL.
That's awesome.
And I try to like, listen, I know if I was listening to someone and someone was jamming Longhorn stuff down my throat, I'd be way less likely to finish that podcast. So I try to hold back my Sooner allegiance, but I threw a hat on after the OU Texas every now and then. And obviously when Brad decides to get back into the game, he's just taking a little regroup right now. It'll be awesome because you guys will have a great time. He's loving the tailgate season because the Elite Series season is over. So the last couple years in the Opens, he's been grinding it out through October, hasn't been able to go to the home games, and now it's all brisket and message boards.
It's funny because when he was trying to qualify for the Opens, he'll listen to games or watch games when he's on the road. Mm-hmm. And so we'll call. I'm sure you've done it several times with him to talk OU football. We've done it. And when he was grinding last year trying to make the Elites again, like what was his third year, he's going, I'm sick of this fall schedule. I pay a lot of money to have these season tickets and I can't go to a game. And here he is. And he had told me, anytime you want, let me know. We'll try to figure it out. And I looked when we made this loop to Christina's family's camping and see my parents and then going to be on our way back. I looked at the schedule and I said, oh my gosh, I called him and I said, you got space for the October 21st game against UCF? He goes, come on. I said, dude, just please don't laugh at me if I cry. And he goes, what? I said, don't laugh at me if I get teared up. He goes, I'm going to tell you this. I knew I married the right woman when she cried after we lost a game.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Dude, I have Brad's going to kill me for telling this, but I got to tell it because it relates to everything. It's a story about OU football and the US Open. So in 18, I went out when we went out to the US Open. It was like right after the OU Texas. So basically Brad,
which we won in 18.
Yeah. If I remember right, I drove out there with Brad and then Brad flew back during practice for a day and a half to do OU Texas.
Yes.
And then flew back to the US Open.
And then his wife flew out here and they spent more time on me after the tournament.
So he goes to OU Texas and it's at the state fair, right? And I guess
I'm watching it on the plane.
I guess after the game, you have to go back through, and I mean it's a heated rivalry. I guess I don't know. Let me see how I could delicately say this. There was an altercation with some younger Texas fans who were highly inebriated. Well, anyway, Brad ended up breaking a freaking rib in this altercation. Like he got kind of jumped. Well, he didn't tell anybody because he's like, 45-year-old man. Like I can't, it wasn't him at all. Anyway, he ended up getting like tackled, broke a rib. So we go out. So Brad comes back and he's like, dude, I'm in freaking bad shape, man. He's like, I gotta fish this tournament. He's sitting there just hacking. He can't move, can't get out of bed. It was taking him. He was wrapping his torso with like compression wrap and stuff. And he couldn't tell anyone because he didn't want to tell his wife that he'd gotten hurt because she was there. It was like a weird freak accident that happened at OU Texas between two highly allegiant people for their schools. Then he went out and like top 20 the US Open with a broken rib from OU Texas week. He'll probably never speak to me again now that I told that story. But that is an honest to God story. He did it with a broken rib that he got at OU Texas week.
That is awesome. And all I got to say is boomer. That's awesome. Hallman's one of my favorite people in the world. Going back to when he was riding the Bass Zone logos on his boat when he was fishing the Elites.
He had to have a wrapped boat, and Jeffries he didn't have anyone to wrap it. The Jeffries being Jeffries was like, I'll wrap it for you.
Opportunity.
All right, Dano. I'm gonna let you go. Get things handled. All the press releases, a lot of the stories, interviews, all that. Available.
Thanks for sharing them. Thanks for posting them. Thanks for the time for Bill and for Brad and everybody here at the U.S. Open. Guys, follow onebassevents.com, and thanks for the time, Matthew.
All right, see you, Dano. All right, that is Dano Sullivan from Advanced Angler. We're going to take our final break of the show, and we will be back right after this.
Having confidence in your tackle while on the water is one of the main things to success, in my opinion. In the last couple of years with Denali, I've had just that. From anything from spinning rods, casting rods, tungsten products, even now to casting and spinning reels, I have the confidence to go out there and get the job done and know that all my equipment is going to handle it and do it just the way I want it. The thing about Denali is you've got great quality products at a great price point, so make sure you check them out. I'm the kind of guy that never leaves the house without a pocket knife, and Gamakatsu's come out with the EDC series of knives. EDC stands for everyday carry, so whether you're on the water or off, you can always have it with you. The best thing about it to me is that assisted open feature. With this D2 blade, you've got it right here at your fingertips, so if you can't find your scissors, you need to cut a knot, you need to cut your braid, you've always got it. Make sure you check it out. Never leave home without your Gamakatsu EDC knife.
Born in Japan, using technology, innovation, and precision, Sunline produces the widest selection of fishing lines at the most technologically advanced line factory in the world. Manufactured at the strictest tolerances to produce victories at the highest levels of tournament bass fishing. From household names like Christie, Swindle, and Cruz, to young guns like Cook, Logan, New, and Welcher, they all trust Sunline to take them to the top of the leaderboard. Choose the line that will give you the strength to guarantee your confidence. Sunline.
Have you considered purchasing new electronics for your rig? The type of mounts you choose to protect your investment should be part of the decision-making process. No matter if you prefer 1, 2, or 3 graphs up front, Beatdown Outdoors has a solution for you. Adjustable, versatile, rigid, and made in the USA. What's your ultimate electronics setup? Check out the full selection of Beatdown Outdoors products by visiting beatdownoutdoors.com.
The great thing about the new Sensation soft plastics from Big Bite Baits, heavily scented, super soft, buoyant, comes in 7 great new shapes. I've got a couple of them of my signature series, the cliffhanger worm and the ramtail craw. Great for a flipping jig, football jig, swim jig, all that. Several other great shapes. Really excited about it. We've worked over the last year, catches fish all over the country, and I think it's going to catch fish for people everywhere you try it.
The Spro Little John crankbait has been around for almost 15 years, and it is one of my go-to crankbaits whenever I need a fish in the boat, so you can never have enough new colors. That's why Spro's coming out with a handful of new colors, including Pearl Shad, which has this bleached out white look, but it's got this pearlescent, really pretty. We've got Copper Shad, which looks amazing in the water. It's got that purple flake on the back, really pops in the water. And then if you want some real pop, we've got Sparkle Shad, nothing but sparkles all over this thing. And then last but not least, we've got the matte Sexy Shad, just a really different looking color for a crankbait. So you want to give them a little different look, that matte Sexy Shad is definitely the one to go with. All these colors are available in the original Little John and the MD.
All right, we're back. BTL on a Tuesday. Like I said, shout out to Dano. He had to get up at 6 a.m. out there on the West Coast. I've never been to, I think it's Laughlin, Nevada. A little fun fact, these Aldeans lived there for 3 years. So Chris, very familiar with it. Would expect him to stay near the top of the leaderboard in the 41st One Bass U.S. Open. All right, schedule-wise for the rest of the week, tomorrow we have day 4 on day 3. Frank moves to Wednesday. Then tomorrow night, Bass, this is going to sound weird, Bassmaster Elite Series Pro Ben Milliken, 8:30 at night. He literally qualified for the Elite Series. Then he went to Disney World. Now he's going to be home, and we did it all year long before he had even made a single cast. We had him on, kind of documented the whole process of him through the Opens all year, and then he ended up finishing 9th in the point standings and qualified for the... I cannot wait for Ben Milliken and Matt Herron to pull up on the same spot about 2 tournaments in to the Elite Series next year, it's going to be the greatest thing ever on FS1. But we're going to have Ben Milliken on at 8:30 p.m. So 2 shows tomorrow night. And then on Thursday, that kind of is why we moved it. The special announcement, it has to do with, I'll say it, AFCO and Sunline. If you have wanted to fish the Bassmaster Opens, you probably should listen to this, because there'll be an opportunity to do that with some really cool help, and then some really cool programs coming from both of those. So we have Casey Shed from AFCO, part of the Shed family, who owns AFCO, will be on to talk about it, as well as Dave Rush. Dave will be kind of on the backside to give more of the details on it, on the programs that we're talking about. So that's what we have going on this week. Stay tuned to Bassmaster for the Bass Nation Championship, near and dear to my heart. That tournament is kind of in its last, I guess, iteration in this current form. And then I'm sure for the next 41 years, the U.S. Open will be around too. But that's all we got for today's show. Tomorrow morning, Frank Scalish, 8:30 a.m. Central. Hey, like, comment, subscribe. Like I said, we're getting towards the end of the year. I hate to beg on this stuff, but if you have not left a review on iTunes and you watch this on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, any of that, greatly appreciate a like and a comment. That's all we got. All right, we'll see everybody tomorrow. Later.